Well, India might just have found its very own Desi challenger to WhatsApp. A homegrown messaging app, Aratai, built by Zoho, is suddenly making headlines after witnessing a jaw-dropping rise in daily sign-ups. From just 3,000 new users a day to a staggering 3.5 lakh daily registrations, all in just 3 days. That's a 100 times jump, driven by government endorsements, social media buzz, and its pitch as a privacy-first, spyware-free alternative to global rivals like WhatsApp, owned by Meta. Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan recently endorsed Aratai, calling it a truly made-in-India innovation. And Zoho's founder and chief scientist Sridhar Vembu says a big release is planned for November, even though the app has already gone viral. Sridhar Vembu adds that Zoho has all hands on deck right now, scaling up infrastructure and fine-tuning code to handle the traffic surge. Now remember, Aratai offers everything from messaging, image and video sharing, as well as document transfers, to voice and video calls, stories, as well as channel management. Well, is this a trend which is likely to sustain, or is just going to be a bust life cycle of Indian products like we haven't really gotten immune to? Dr. Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher and corporate advisor, joins us this morning. Srinath, good morning. Pleasure having you back with us on News 9. To begin with, I tried to message you on the Aratai app, but I did not find you there. So, have you seen the interface? Have you sort of been able to distinguish how similar or different it is to WhatsApp?
Morning, Karthik. I mean, I love the word Arattai. I mean, it is pronounced as Arattai.
It's a Tamil word, so I'm sure you have a story to tell us.
And for all those who are from the north of India, as we should take a punt at, I think the word is exciting. It's kind of mischievous also. It's about chat and banter, as the word stands for. Exciting because this is one of the, I think, from a non-product nation that we are or have been so far, it is a product first for India. And I hope it is not just for India, at some point in time goes global. While I want to say that it's all about engineering capability and skill sets, which they're proving or proven well so far, let's be a little cautious. Why did WhatsApp succeed and probably not Telegram? Why did Coup not succeed when WhatsApp succeeded? What made BBM, if you remember, Karthik, many years ago, BlackBerry Messenger. And if you remember, even before that, the Hotmail Messenger, we all used to ask the anonymous person ASL.
Yes.
Extra location, right? So I think messengers tell me one thing. Messengers are not just about technical expertise. While I think it's very important that we take pride in what we develop in India, we shouldn't jump the gun. To me, if I were to put in money, it's very simple. How well do you understand the social and the cultural nuances to be relevant going forward? Today, it's exciting because we're all saying, hey, first in India, and it's patriotism and all of that. It really won't even pay the money for the server fees tomorrow. So the reality is, how do we make adoption possible? If I don't find even, say, 10 to 15% of my current WhatsApp groups available or networks available on Aratai, over a point in time, let's give it time to be fair, people won't adopt. People will migrate out. I mean, Coup had a very similar story, right? I mean, the government went all beyond what it should officially and kind of cheered Coup. Everybody, all the political leaders celebrated, CEOs all jumped to Coup, but yet it couldn't sustain. So there are, I think, lessons of technology alone doesn't win. If you were to really look at global software giants and why are they succeeding sitting out of, let's say, in the West Coast or Germany, it is a simple message. Even WhatsApp started as a very small team, 19-member team, which then got sold to a big tech. And only after that, the protectionism came in. So the sovereign protectionism doesn't sell software. That's a lesson that if you look at the last 40, 50 years of existence of Microsoft or Apple has shown. If you look at WeChat, it took on completely the might of global messaging services. So the lesson to me is nationalism might spark initial downloads, but what more? What next? What beyond WhatsApp? And how am I going to get you and me to migrate out of our WhatsApp comfort and say, let's chat on Aratai?
You're right, exactly. So, Srinath, I think there are some very, very obvious points that you're raising, and pretty much, you're doing my job here. So, thank you so much for that. But I really want to understand that last point that you spoke about, the migration why would you or me as a user migrate from a platform that we are very comfortable using right now, where we have our network, where we have our groups, where we have work and social life running fairly seamlessly and in parallel? What would take us to migrate to a new platform like Aratai? Just the fact that it is Swadeshi, it is made in India, also raises a question, is it Swadeshi and made in India but a tad too late? I didn't honestly find too much innovation in the product. It pretty much seems like a Me Too product. So what needs to be the incentive for me to switch over to a platform like Aratai?
So I think that's a challenge, Karthik. I mean, what they're promising as the big announcement that is to come up. I mean, what more will they offer? I think that's one. And two, I'm a little cynical digital user. When I say cynical, uh, you can stand up and say, hey, my product has got the best digital and privacy. How do I really know? How will you tell me, a layman user of your technology, that my data is not going anywhere? I think that's a challenge. Even if you look at it, what WhatsApp is still fighting that information campaign or disinformation campaign against it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so Aratai to me also has to tell me that my data is not going to the government, considering that the company is seen as cheered by the government.
yeah,
And it's no different from, we've always been wondering about how safe is our data on Aadhaar or PAN or even the healthcare data. Or recently, we've been seeing questions about who actually owns DigiYatra and where
correct.
is our data safe. So this question will continue. And I also somewhere feel that the patriotic sentiments don't really change our daily lives. If you and I mean, each of us human beings have different avatar, right? We have a personal life, a social life. We're all, I think, in that sense, Ravan, which each of the head probably having a different persona. Uh, how do we ensure that all of them are addressable in Aratai? That's a question.
Right.
If we are doing cross-border conversation, the challenge is our clients or teams are not going to necessarily use Aratai,
Exactly.
which is why I said Aratai has to go global. If they have to go global, they have to understand what makes socio-cultural mix, which means that at some point in time, like the big techs do, Zoho will have to bring in anthropologists and sociologists to bring in those nuances to what today, unfortunately, we are seeing it as a technical product. I mean, an app today is not a technical product. Of course, it's based on engineering, but that alone doesn't work. That doesn't alone sell it. Have
Right.
you ever wondered, I mean, why do we use Zoom? Do you even know who owns Zoom? We're actually chatting on Zoom here.
Yeah.
Do we even, why did we adopt Microsoft many, many years ago? So I think it's the peg of society and culture. And how will we learn that? And how will we give up our prejudices? Because if you're taking a very nationalist view right from day one, it won't even cross our borders.
You're right, and you're talking about Zoom. You know, I remember in the immediate post-COVID or during the final phase of COVID 2021, 2022, if I remember correctly, we had a Zoom lookalike also launched by Jio. But what happened to that product? I mean, it wasn't as seamless an experience. I'm not undermining what Aratai is doing. I think the product seems fairly okay on first use, but the fact that it required migration and that migration did not happen, and that Jio lookalike of Zoom never really took off. But I also want to spend a minute on Coup, because that's a valid point that you had raised, Srinath, and that's something that even I had in mind to discuss with you. The fact that Coup enjoyed almost a similar unprecedented government support for a privately owned product, a tech product, also came at a time when India wasn't really the best of friends with Jack Dorsey, who then owned Twitter. So there was a national interest for political leaders to endorse a homegrown product, perhaps safeguarding their own territory and saying that, hey, given a chance, we would be happy ditching Twitter. But eventually, Coup started in 2020, wound up in 2024, lasted just 4 years. This time around, the fact that we are seeing a similar support for Aratai, could it at some level also suggest that this is a message that India is giving to big tech, that, hey, if we want to pull the plug on Meta and Meta services in India, we have an alternative?
I mean, yes, Karthik, the answer is yes. And there are examples across human history on the simple fact of migration, right? I mean, when I'm talking about non-technological migration, people migrate from their villages and towns and even countries. It's not that migration in India started only post-independence. It has also happened much before that as well. So, very similarly, our human instinct is to attempt and experiment with newer things. And if it really doesn't change the needle for us in terms of greater comfort, greater convenience, greater options, greater, I don't know what else is that greater and more that Aratai or anybody can give. And then we go back to our own comfortable ways. If have you ever wondered why have we not had new operating system for many years globally?
True.
And people would argue about the cost of technology. I think if India really wants to say, you know what, we want the sovereign OS and we're going to spend $100 billion, we can get it. It's not about technology. It's about how do we make people switch. I think that switching cost, I'm saying, is not only technology led, it is more about social and cultural led. Why is it that youngsters are not seen on Facebook? Why are they seen on Snapchats and Insta? I mean,
Right.
there's a social angle there. I mean, they think that the oldies are actually on Facebook and not them,
Yeah.
and it is far more cooler because Insta made pictures, reels, videos, short videos, all of that doable because that's a generation which uses this. So any messaging app has to keep evolving very quickly and not become a device of serving only certain select constituents, and that's a challenge. So I see a huge, I think, a switching cost today. I really don't know why would you switch or I switch. Probably we'll be cat on the wall.
You're right. So
Wait for a couple of months, and once we know that probably 10-15% of our friends and business folks are actually on our type, we will make the switch. But unfortunately, that's a challenge for any product at all globally. It's not just for Indian, and we should now make this as is it against loaded against Indians? No, it's if you want to sell a product globally, that is exactly what you have to do. We have faced that with physical and tangible products, and we have broken ground, and we have moved on to create anchor in different markets. I
yeah.
think similarly will be the challenge.
You're right, Srinath. And in fact, you did mention Facebook and many of the Gen Z users now ditching Facebook. Well, I don't know how many of our News9 producers, those belonging to Gen Z, sitting in the PCR right now, would remember a product called Orkut, which I'm sure you and I are fairly familiar with. You also mentioned Hotmail. So, my final question to you, Srinath, really is that is this an innovative product? Would you call it an innovative product which is really solving a requirement, a need, a problem area that exists using technology? Or is it just a Me Too product? And on that count, companies like Zoho, as well as any other product company run by Indians, based in India or anywhere else run by Indians, do we need to look at solving a problem rather than just creating another version of a product that exists? And that, to my mind, remains that one singular question where India's product dominance continues to be a challenge.
So, Karthik, I mean, it's a far deeper question that you're asking. So, I would say build versus buy. Is it going to be far more, let's say, a digital sovereignty-led product? No, not really at this point in time. I mean, if India were to spend time and efforts in building its own operating system and getting our government employees to move away from whatever they're using. I mean, you still find a lot of policymakers use their Gmail for official purposes,
Yeah.
and I shudder. And yet they will speak about digital sovereignty. So I
But
think these
on
are the
digital
choices that.
sovereignty, India has some boxes which it has ticked fairly well, Srinath. UPI being one example, and also the Digi Locker. I mean, these are you had a drop box, right? So Digi Locker comes from the overall architecture of a drop box, but something where you can authenticate your documents as well as UPI, a platform and interface where you can make payments. This is pretty much best in class technology. These were solving real problems. With a platform like Aratai, I don't really see a problem being solved. I just see an alternative to a solution for a problem that exists.
So, Karthik, probably to an extent, yes. And that is where I was leading to when I said build versus buy. Today, let's say if an Aratai were to go to some of the technological foundations, let's say a Signal app was probably far more encrypted. And I won't be surprised if our intelligence communities around the world still continue using it. It is away from the mainstream limelight, while WhatsApp has gone B2C. The challenge is what if we go and tie with them and say, with the foundation and say, I want the tech stack. And probably possible that we could have built a layer on top of it and yet build for layers of privacy and security which we wanted. And that's how technology gets built. I won't be surprised of, global population of 9 billion, few 100 million coders wouldn't have written something that we want. It will be available as objects in various software libraries globally.
Right.
So the challenge here is, are we doing it for a nationalist fervor sentiment? And again, it's a choice, the private entrepreneur, and we must respect his choice, right? I mean, it is his money, it is his capital and resources that he's putting in. And I respect the sentiment when he addressed that very well in a Twitter response to a user who asked him, why is he not listed?
Yeah.
And he said, it's a choice that I make, and I cannot really go and explain this every quarter to the Wall Street analysts. So
Right.
I think we must give kudos to Mr. Vembu for having done what he is doing. And the choice of why he's doing it, I think only he would know, and we don't need to question that at all.
Absolutely.
But Aratai, I mean, will we make people move away from WhatsApp and others? Not sure. Not
right.
yet.
So the big question mark still hangs. Sridharan, thank you so much for taking time out and putting this big developing story in perspective for all our viewers this morning. Thank you so much for your time.